Daniel, chapter 7. In the first year of the reign of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream. What he saw as he slept in his bed terrified him, a real nightmare. Then he wrote out his dream. In my dream that night I saw the four winds of heaven whipping up a great storm on the sea. Four huge animals, each different from the others, ascended out of the sea. The first animal looked like a lion, but it had the wings of an eagle. While I watched, its wings were pulled off. It was then pulled erect so that it was standing on 2 feet like a man. Then a human heart was placed in it. Then I saw a second animal that looked like a bear. It lurched from side to side, holding 3 ribs in its jaws. It was told, attack. Devour. Fill your belly. Next I saw another animal. This one looked like a panther. It had 4 bird-like wings on its back. This animal had 4 heads and was made to rule. After that, a 4th animal appeared in my dream. This one was a grisly horror, hideous. It had huge iron teeth. It crunched and swallowed its victims. Anything left over, it trampled into the ground. It was different from the other animals. This one was a real monster. It had 10 horns. As I was staring at the horns and trying to figure out what they meant, another horn sprouted up, a little horn. 3 of the original horns were pulled out to make room for it. There were human eyes in this little horn, and a big mouth speaking arrogantly. As I was watching all this, thrones were set in place and the old one sat down. His robes were white as snow, his hair was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, its wheels blazing. A river of fire poured out of the throne. Thousands upon thousands served him, tens of thousands attended him. The courtroom was called to order, and the books were opened. I kept watching. The little horn was speaking arrogantly. Then, as I watched, the monster was killed and its body cremated in a roaring fire. The other animals lived on for a limited time, but they didn't really do anything, had no power to rule. My dream continued. I saw a human form, a son of man, arriving in a whirl of clouds. He came to the old one and was presented to him. He was given power to rule all the glory of royalty. Everyone, race, color, and creed had to serve him. His rule would be forever, never ending. His kingly rule would never be replaced. But as for me, Daniel, I was disturbed. All these dream visions had me agitated. So I went up to one of those standing by and asked him the meaning of all this. And he told me, interpreting the dream for me. These 4 huge animals, he said, mean that 4 kingdoms will appear on earth, but eventually, the holy people of the high God will be given the kingdom and have it ever after, yes, forever and ever. But I wanted to know more. I was curious about the 4th animal, the one so different from the others, the hideous monster with the iron teeth and the bronze claws, gulping down what it ripped to pieces and trampling the leftovers into the dirt. And I wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head and the other horn that sprouted up while 3 of the original horns were removed. This new horn had eyes and a big mouth and spoke arrogantly, dominating the other horns. I watched as this horn was making war on God's holy people and getting the best of them. But then the old one intervened and decided things in favor of the people of the high God. In the end, God's holy people took over the kingdom. The bystander continued, telling me this. The 4th animal is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from the first 3 kingdoms, a monster kingdom that will chew up everyone in sight and spit them out. The 10 horns are 10 kings, one after another, that will come from this kingdom, but then another king will arrive. He will be different from the earlier kings. He will begin by toppling 3 kings. Then he will blaspheme the high God, persecute the followers of the high God, and try to get rid of sacred worship and moral practice. God's holy people will be persecuted by him for a time, 2 times, half a time. But when the court comes to order, the horn will be stripped of its power and totally destroyed. Then the royal rule and the authority and the glory of all the kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the people of the high God. Their royal rule will last forever. All other rulers will serve and obey them. And there it ended. I, Daniel, was in shock. I was like a man who had seen a ghost. but I kept it all to myself. Daniel, chapter 8. In King Belshazzar's third year as king, another vision came to me, Daniel. This was now the second vision. In the vision, I saw myself in Susa, the capital city of the province Elam, standing at the Ulai Canal. Looking around, I was surprised to see a ram also standing at the gate. The ram had two huge horns, one bigger than the other, but the bigger horn was the last to appear. I watched as the ram charged, first west, then north, then south. No beast could stand up to him. He did just as he pleased, strutting as if he were king of the beasts. While I was watching this, wondering what it all meant, I saw a billy goat with an immense horn in the middle of its forehead come up out of the west and fly across the whole country, not once touching the ground. The billy goat approached the double-horned ram that I had earlier seen standing at the gate and, enraged, charged it viciously. I watched as, mad with rage, it charged the ram and hit it so hard that it broke off its two horns. The ram didn't stand a chance against it. The billy goat knocked the ram to the ground and stomped all over it. Nothing could have saved the ram from the goat. Then the billy goat swelled to an enormous size. At the height of its power, its immense horn broke off and 4 other big horns sprouted in its place, pointing to the 4 points of the compass. And then from one of these big horns another horn sprouted. It started small, but then grew to an enormous size, facing south and east toward lovely Palestine. The horn grew tall, reaching to the stars, the heavenly army, and threw some of the stars to the earth and stomped on them. It even dared to challenge the power of God, Prince of the celestial army. And then it threw out daily worship and desecrated the sanctuary. As judgment against their sin, the holy people of God got the same treatment as the daily worship. The horn cast God's truth aside. High-handed, it took over everything and everyone. Then I overheard 2 holy angels talking. One asked, "How long is what we see here going to last, the abolishing of daily worship, this devastating judgment against sin, the kicking around of God's holy people and the sanctuary?" The other answered, "Over the course of 2,300 sacrifices, evening and morning. Then the sanctuary will be set right again." While I, Daniel, was trying to make sense of what I was seeing, suddenly there was a human-like figure standing before me. Then I heard a man's voice from over by the Ulai Canal calling out, "Gabriel, tell this man what is going on. Explain the vision to him." He came up to me, but when he got close I became terrified and fell face down on the ground. As soon as he spoke, I fainted, my face in the dirt. But he picked me up and put me on my feet. And then he continued, "I want to tell you what is going to happen as the judgment days of wrath wind down, for there is going to be an end to all this. The double-horned ram you saw stands for the 2 kings of the Medes and Persians. The billy goat stands for the kingdom of the Greeks. The huge horn on its forehead is the first Greek king. The 4 horns that sprouted after it was broken off are the 4 kings that come after him, but without his power. As their kingdoms cool down and rebellions heat up, a king will show up, hard-faced, a master trickster. His power will swell enormously. He'll talk big, high-handedly, doing whatever he pleases, knocking off heroes and holy ones left and right. He'll plot and scheme to make crime flourish, and oh, how it will flourish. He'll think he's invincible and get rid of anyone who gets in his way. But when he takes on the prince of all princes, he'll be smashed to bits, but not by human hands." This vision of the 2,300 sacrifices, evening and morning, is accurate but confidential. Keep it to yourself. It refers to the far future. I, Daniel, walked around in a daze, unwell for days. Then I got a grip on myself and went back to work taking care of the king's affairs. But I continued to be upset by the vision. I couldn't make sense of it. Daniel, chapter 9. Darius, son of Ahasuerus, born a Mede, became king over the land of Babylon. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, was meditating on the scriptures that gave, according to the word of God to the prophet Jeremiah, the number of years that Jerusalem had to lie in ruins, namely, 70. I turned to the Master God, asking for an answer, praying earnestly, fasting from meals, wearing rough penitential burlap, and kneeling in the ashes. I poured out my heart, bearing my soul to God, my God. Yet we have sinned in every way imaginable. We've done evil things, rebelled, dodged, and taken detours around your clearly marked paths. We've turned a deaf ear to your servants the prophets, who preached your word to our kings and leaders, our parents, and all the people in the land. You have done everything right, Master, but all we have to show for our lives is guilt and shame, the whole lot of us, people of Judah, citizens of Jerusalem, Israel at home and Israel in exile and all the places we've been banished to because of our betrayal of you. Oh yes, God, we've been exposed in our shame, all of us our kings, leaders, parents, before the whole world. And deservedly so, because of our sin. Compassion is our only hope, the compassion of you, the Master, our God, since in our rebellion we've forfeited our rights. We paid no attention to you when you told us how to live, the clear teaching that came through your servants the prophets. All of us in Israel ignored what you said. We defied your instructions, and did what we pleased. And now we're paying for it. The solemn curse written out plainly in the revelation to God's servant Moses is now doing its work among us, the wages of our sin against you. You did to us and our rulers what you said you would do. You brought this catastrophic disaster on us, the worst disaster on record and in Jerusalem. Just as written in God's revelation to Moses, the catastrophe was total. Nothing was held back. We kept at our sinning, never giving you a second thought, oblivious to your clear warning, and so you had no choice but to let the disaster loose on us in full force. You, our God, had a perfect right to do this since we persistently and defiantly ignored you. Master, you are our God, for you delivered your people from the land of Egypt in a show of power. People are still talking about it. We confess that we have sinned, that we have lived bad lives. Following the lines of what you have always done in setting things right, setting people right, please stop being so angry with Jerusalem, your very own city, your holy mountain. We know it's our fault that this has happened, all because of our sins and our parents' sins, and now we're an embarrassment to everyone around us. We're a blot on the neighborhood. So listen, God, to this determined prayer of your servant. Have mercy on your ruined sanctuary. Act out of who you are, not out of what we are. Turn your ears our way, God, and listen. Open your eyes and take a long look at our ruined city, this city named after you. We know that we don't deserve a hearing from you. Our appeal is to your compassion. This prayer is our last and only hope. Master, listen to us. Master, forgive us. Master, look at us and do something. Master, don't put us off. Your city and your people are named after you. You have a stake in us. While I was pouring out my heart, bearing my sins and the sins of my people Israel, praying my life out before my God, interceding for the holy mountain of my God. While I was absorbed in this praying, the human-like Gabriel, the one I had seen in an earlier vision, approached me, flying in like a bird about the time of evening worship. He stood before me and said, Daniel, I have come to make things plain to you. You had no sooner started your prayer when the answer was given. And now I'm here to deliver the answer to you. You are much loved. So listen carefully to the answer, the plain meaning of what is revealed. 77s are set for your people and for your holy city to throttle rebellion, stop sin, wipe out crime, set things right forever, confirm what the prophet saw, and anoint the Holy of Holies. Here's what you must understand. From the time the word goes out to rebuild Jerusalem until the coming of the anointed leader, there will be 7 sevens. The rebuilding will take 62 sevens, including building streets and digging a moat. Those will be rough times. After the 62 sevens, the anointed leader will be killed at the end of him. The city and sanctuary will be laid in ruins by the army of the newly arriving leader. The end will come in a rush, like a flood. War will rage right up to the end, desolation the order of the day. Then for 1 7, he will forge many and strong alliances, but halfway through the 7, he will banish worship and prayers. At the place of worship, a desecrating obscenity will be set up and remain until finally the desecrator himself is decisively destroyed. Daniel, chapter 10. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Cyrus of Persia, a message was made plain to Daniel, whose Babylonian name was Belteshazzar. The message was true. It dealt with a big war. He understood the message, the understanding coming by revelation. During those days, I, Daniel, went into mourning over Jerusalem for 3 weeks. I ate only plain and simple food, no seasoning or meat or wine. I neither bathed nor shaved until the 3 weeks were up. On the 24th day of the first month I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris. I looked up and to my surprise saw a man dressed in linen with a belt of pure gold around his waist. His body was hard and glistening, as if sculpted from a precious stone, his face radiant, his eyes bright and penetrating like torches, his arms and feet glistening like polished bronze, and his voice, deep and resonant, sounded like a huge choir of voices. I, Daniel, was the only one to see this. The men who were with me, although they didn't see it, were overcome with fear and ran off and hid, fearing the worst. Left alone after the appearance, abandoned by my friends, I went weak in the knees, the blood drained from my face. I heard his voice. At the sound of it I fainted, fell flat on the ground, face in the dirt. A hand touched me and pulled me to my hands and knees. Daniel, he said, man of quality, listen carefully to my message. And get up on your feet. Stand at attention. I've been sent to bring you news. When he had said this, I stood up, but I was still shaking. Relax, Daniel, he continued, don't be afraid. From the moment you decided to humble yourself to receive understanding, your prayer was heard, and I set out to come to you. But I was waylaid by the angel prince of the kingdom of Persia, and was delayed for a good 3 weeks. But then Michael, one of the chief angel princes, intervened to help me. I left him there with the prince of the kingdom of Persia. And now I'm here to help you understand what will eventually happen to your people. The vision has to do with what's ahead. While he was saying all this, I looked at the ground and said nothing. Then I was surprised by something like a human hand that touched my lips. I opened my mouth and started talking to the messenger. When I saw you, Master, I was terror-stricken. My knees turned to water. I couldn't move. How can I, a lowly servant, speak to you, my master? I'm paralyzed. I can hardly breathe. Then this human-like figure touched me again and gave me strength. He said, don't be afraid, friend. Peace. Everything is going to be all right. Take courage. Be strong. Even as he spoke, courage surged up within me. I said, go ahead, let my master speak. You've given me courage. He said, do you know why I've come here to you? I now have to go back to fight against the angel prince of Persia, and when I get him out of the way, the angel prince of Greece will arrive. But first let me tell you what's written in the true book. No one helps me in my fight against these beings except Michael, your angel prince. Daniel, chapter 11. And I, in my turn, have been helping him out as best I can ever since the first year in the reign of Darius the Mede, the kings of the south and the north. But now let me tell you the truth of how things stand. 3 more kings of Persia will show up, and then a 4th will become richer than all of them. When he senses that he is powerful enough as a result of his wealth, he will go to war against the entire kingdom of Greece. Then a powerful king will show up and take over a huge territory and run things just as he pleases. But at the height of his power, with everything seemingly under control, his kingdom will split into 4 parts, like the 4 points of the compass. But his heirs won't get in on it. There will be no continuity with his kingship. Others will tear it to pieces and grab whatever they can get for themselves. Next, the king of the south will grow strong, but one of his princes will grow stronger than he and rule an even larger territory. After a few years, the 2 of them will make a pact, and the daughter of the king of the south will marry the king of the north to cement the peace agreement. But her influence will weaken and her child will not survive. She and her servants, her child, and her husband will be betrayed. A member of the royal family will show up and take over. He will take command of his army and invade the defenses of the king of the north and win a resounding victory. He will load up their tin gods and all the gold and silver trinkets that go with them and cart them off to Egypt. Eventually, the king of the north will recover and invade the country of the king of the south, but unsuccessfully. He will have to retreat. But then his sons will raise a huge army and rush down like a flood, a torrential attack, on the defenses of the south. Furious, the king of the south will come out and engage the king of the north and his huge army in battle and rout them. As the corpses are cleared from the field, the king, inflamed with bloodlust, will go on a bloodletting rampage, massacring tens of thousands. But his victory won't last long, for the king of the north will put together another army bigger than the last one, and after a few years he'll come back to do battle again with his immense army and endless supplies. In those times, many others will get into the act and go off to fight against the king of the south. Hotheads from your own people, drunk on dreams, will join them. But they'll sputter out. When the king of the north arrives, he'll build siege works and capture the outpost fortress city. The armies of the south will fall to pieces before him. Not even their famous commando shock troops will slow down the attacker. He'll march in big as you please, as if he owned the place. He'll take over that beautiful country, Palestine, and make himself at home in it. Then he'll proceed to get everything, lock, stock, and barrel, in his control. He'll cook up a peace treaty and even give his daughter in marriage to the king of the south in a plot to destroy him totally. But the plot will fizzle. It won't succeed. Later, he'll turn his attention to the coastal regions and capture a bunch of prisoners. But a general will step in and put a stop to his bullying ways. The bully will be bullied. He'll go back home and tend to his own military affairs. But by then, he'll be washed up and soon will be heard of no more. He will be replaced shortly by a real loser, his rule, reputation, and authority already in shreds. And he won't last long. He'll slip out of history quietly, without even a fight. His place will be taken by a reject, a man spurned and passed over for advancement. He'll surprise everyone, seemingly coming out of nowhere, and will seize the kingdom. He'll come in like a steamroller, flattening the opposition. Even the Prince of the Covenant will be crushed. After negotiating a ceasefire, he'll betray its terms. With a few henchmen, he'll take total control. Arbitrarily and impulsively, he'll invade the richest provinces. He'll surpass all his ancestors, near and distant, in his rape of the country, grabbing and looting, living with his cronies in corrupt and lavish luxury. He'll get a great army together, all charged up to fight the king of the south. The king of the south, in response, will get his army, an even greater army, in place, ready to fight. But he won't be able to sustain that intensity for long because of the treacherous intrigue. In his own ranks, his court having been honeycombed with vicious plots. His army will be smashed, the battlefield filled with corpses. The two kings, each with evil designs on the other, will sit at the conference table and trade lies. Nothing will come of the treaty, which is nothing but a tissue of lies anyway. But that's not the end of it. There's more to this story. The king of the north will go home loaded down with plunder, but his mind will be set on destroying the Holy Covenant as he passes through the country on his way home. 1 year later he will mount a fresh invasion of the south. But the second invasion won't compare to the first. When the Roman ships arrive, he will turn tail and go back home. But as he passes through the country, he will be filled with anger at the Holy Covenant. He will take up with all those who betray the Holy Covenant, favoring them. The bodyguards surrounding him will march in and desecrate the sanctuary and citadel. They'll throw out the daily worship and set up in its place the obscene sacrilege. The king of the north will play up to those who betray the Holy Covenant, corrupting them even further with his seductive talk, but those who stay courageously loyal to their God will take a strong stand. Those who keep their heads on straight will teach the crowds right from wrong by their example. They'll be put to severe testing for a season, some killed, some burned, some exiled, some robbed. When the testing is intense, they'll get some help, but not much. Many of the helpers will be half-hearted at best. The testing will refine, cleanse, and purify those who keep their heads on straight and stay true, for there is still more to come. 6 Meanwhile, the king of the north will do whatever he pleases. He'll puff himself up and posture himself as greater than any god. He will even dare to brag and boast in defiance of the God of gods. And he'll get by with it for a while until this time of wrathful judgment is completed, for what is decreed must be done. He will have no respect for the gods of his ancestors, not even that popular favorite among women, Adonis. Contemptuous of every god and goddess, the king of the north will puff himself up greater than all of them. He'll even stoop to despising the God of the holy ones, and in the place where God is worshipped he will put on exhibit, with a lavish show of silver and gold and jewels, a new god that no one has ever heard of. Marching under the banner of a strange god, he will attack the key fortresses. He will promote everyone who falls into line behind this god, putting them in positions of power and paying them off with grants of land. In the final wrap-up of this story, the king of the south will confront him. But the king of the north will come at him like a tornado. Unleashing chariots and horses and an armada of ships, he'll blow away anything in his path. As he enters the beautiful land, people will fall before him like dominoes. Only Edom, Moab, and a few Ammonites will escape. As he reaches out, grabbing country after country, not even Egypt will be exempt. He will confiscate the treasuries of Egyptian gold and silver and other valuables. The Libyans and Ethiopians will fall in with him. Then disturbing reports will come in from the north and east that will throw him into a panic. Towering in rage, he'll rush to stamp out the threat. But he'll no sooner have pitched camp between the Mediterranean Sea and the Holy Mountain, all those royal tents. Then he'll meet his end. And not a soul around who can help. Daniel chapter 12. That's when Michael, the great angel prince, champion of your people, will step in. It will be a time of trouble, the worst trouble the world has ever seen. But your people will be saved from the trouble, every last one found written in the book. Many who have been long dead and buried will wake up, some to eternal life, others to eternal shame. Men and women who have lived wisely and well will shine brilliantly, like the cloudless, star-strewn night skies. And those who put others on the right path to life will glow like stars forever. This is a confidential report, Daniel, for your eyes and ears only. Keep it secret. Put the book under lock and key until the end. In the interim, there is going to be a lot of frantic running around, trying to figure out what's going on. As I, Daniel, took all this in, two figures appeared, one standing on this bank of the river and one on the other bank. One of them asked a third man who was dressed in linen and who straddled the river, "How long is this astonishing story to go on?" The man dressed in linen, who straddled the river, raised both hands to the skies. I heard him solemnly swear by the Eternal One that it would be a time, 2 times, and half a time, that when the oppressor of the holy people was brought down the story would be complete. I heard all this plainly enough, but I didn't understand it. So I asked, "Master, can you explain this to me?" "Go on about your business, Daniel," he said. "The message is confidential and under lock and key until the end, until things are about to be wrapped up. The populace will be washed clean and made like new. But the wicked will just keep on being wicked, without a clue about what is happening. Those who live wisely and well will understand what's going on. From the time that the daily worship is banished from the temple and the obscene desecration is set up in its place, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed are those who patiently make it through the 1,335 days. And you? Go about your business without fretting or worrying. Relax. When it's all over, you will be on your feet to receive your reward."